We've created a perfectly serviceable accompaniment for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And if we wanted to, we could leave it right there and it would be just fine. But there are a lot more things that we can do to make this accompaniment a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more interesting. There are things that we can do with the chord voicing. There are things that we can do with the rhythm of the accompaniment, with the texture of the accompaniment. And I don't have time to get to all of them, but there is one thing that I want us to take a look at, and that is something that we mentioned a couple of videos ago, and that is I want to see if we find some opportunities to use better voice leading or to make the voice leading more smooth. Remember, the voice leading is what we're talking about when we try to make the chords or the jumps that the notes take from chord to chord a little bit less extreme. For instance, let's take a look at measures 4, 5, and 6. These three measures right from here to here. Let's just look at the left hand. I'm sorry, the right hand for a moment. Notice we have this C chord in measure 4, this G chord in measure 5, and this C chord again in measure 6. So if you try that out at a piano, you'll see you're leaping a long way in your hand. Each of the notes in that chord has to leap up and then right back down the interval of a fifth. Up here, up here, up here, then down, down, down. And that's fine, we can do that. But there may be a better way. And let's start by using the method that we were using in the previous videos. Let's see, are there any notes that these two chords have in common? So, well, look, the C chord and the G chord they do have one note in common. It's this G right here, this G that's on the second line. So what if we took that G, what if we kept that G exactly where it was? And let's see, can we move around the other notes a little bit? Well, and this sometimes takes a little bit of trial and error, but what if we move the D down an octave to here? So move the D down here, and then I'll erase it up here. And then what if we move the B, or the third of the chord, down an octave down here? So we have the B here. Let me just rewrite this chord so it's a little bit neater, because it's getting a little bit messy. So we have, instead of G, B, D, we're just going to rearrange the order of those notes, and we're going to have B in the bottom, the third in the bottom, the fifth, and then the root right there. And notice, all of a sudden, we have the same chord. We still have a G major chord, but we've revoiced it, or we've rearranged the voices or the notes in that chord. So now, look, we've created a whole lot smoother of a transition from the C to the G to the C. We started out with, but now we have, notice how much smoother that is, and if you're playing this on the piano, how much easier that is to play. And if I add that along with the right hand, I'm sorry, with the left hand, now that really starts to get sort of a very smooth polish to it, as opposed to what we had originally, which is fine, but this just sounds a little bit slicker and a little bit smoother with that voice leading. And let me just address one other point of confusion, or something that pops up as a point of confusion. Did we just create an inversion of this chord? Because look, the C major chord is in root position, right? Because we have the root in the bottom. And now isn't this G major chord, isn't this in first inversion now because we have the third on the bottom? Did we just invert this chord? And the answer is no, we did not. If this was just the right hand, if this piece of music was just the right hand and we didn't have anything left hand, actually, yes, that would be the case. But remember, an inversion, what we care about in inversion is what is the bottom note of the chord. Not just the bottom note of part of the chord, but the bottom note of the entire chord. If we add up all the three staves that we have here. So we have to take into account not just the right hand, but also the left hand. And notice the left hand, even though we've changed the voicing of the right hand, the left hand is still playing the root in octaves. So we haven't changed the inversion of this chord. Now there may be some cases, some circumstances, as we get a little bit more sophisticated, that we do want to start messing around with the root and start putting these chords in inversion. For now, as we're creating when we're creating accompaniments from lead sheets, let's not do that just yet. Let's keep things simple. But can you find another opportunity to smooth out the voice leading somewhere here? I just want to try one more of these. What if we look at the last three chords of this piece? Look at this leap that we have on the end here. If we go from measure 7 into measure 8, in the right hand we have the D minor chord, going up to the G major chord, down to the C. Boy, that's a lot of leaping. Now notice this is going to be tricky because does the D minor, or do the D minor and the G major chord, do they have any notes in common? Well, they don't have any notes in common that they're playing, but notice both the D minor chord and the G major chord use the note D. So what if we were to, and again, this is going to take a little bit of trial and error, especially when we first start getting going on this, but what if we were to rearrange this G major chord? So let's rearrange the order of the notes here. So let's bring the D down an octave, and let's put the D down here. So now look, now we have that common note, or that common tone between the D minor chord and the G major chord. And let's bring the B down here. So we've just taken these top two notes, we brought them down the octave. And let me again rewrite that just because it's getting a little bit messy, just so we can clearly see. This, by the way, is going to be the exact same voicing that we just had of the G major chord in measure 6. I'm sorry, in measure 5. So here we go. Putting that B in the bottom, the D after it. Now notice that's a lot more that's a lot smoother. And there are a couple of other ways that we could do this as well. And as you start getting into this, you'll see once you start one permutation, you can maybe find a bunch of others. There are usually a lot of solutions. But this gives you at least just a hint of a way to use voice leading to make your accompaniment just a little bit more sophisticated. And when we do our assignment for this unit, we're going to see if we can find at least a few opportunities to do that.